Good, bad. That's right, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Cody Builds. On tonight's episode, we're gonna tackle the passenger side rocker panels on this truck. I've got to get the floor cut out. I've got to get the rockers cut out. I've got to get the cab corners cut out. Everything has to come off this truck just like we did last week. If you saw the video last week, you're an old pro. You know what's coming. If you didn't, stick around, hang out. Let's cut this truck apart. Here you go, fellas. This is exactly the type of stuff I'm running into on every single thing I take apart on this truck. You saw the cab corner come off. Well, guess what? There's another cab corner behind it. All the patches that were done on this truck, it's just one on top of the other on top of the other. And it's just a recipe for disaster when you do that. You're just creating these dead volumes where dirt and moisture can hide, and it does stuff like this. I mean, you got all this rust and rot in here, and this was all replaced at one point in time. So it makes no sense to do it that way. Just cut it out and stitch weld everything back together. I'm gonna keep rocking and rolling. I learned a few things on the other side, so this one's coming apart much quicker. Once I get this original cab corner off, we'll have access to the spot welds that hold the inner rocker panel on. Before I get there, we're going to brace up the door just like we did on the other side on last week. So I'm gonna keep exposing what I need to expose to get all the things cut apart here. And then before I fully cut it apart, we'll brace up everything and go from there. All right, so I learned a good deal from the other side, and I was fighting up on the inside trying to drill out all these spot welds that hold the inner rocker on. What I learned is once you cut the cab corner off and get all this other stuff that we're going to be replacing anyways out of the way, you've got really good access to all of these spot welds that need to be drilled on the back side and up around the back here. So pretty much all I have left to do, I believe, is to drill out these spot welds, and then this whole rocker structure should come down. So I'm gonna go ahead, get these drilled out, and we'll see if I forgot anything. It's a new day. We're back out in the shop. Let me show you guys where we left off last night. I got all of the rocker structure cut out of the bottom of this truck. We got our brace in place. And that kind of reminded me that I didn't really talk much about the bracing throughout this other than to say that I was gonna throw a brace in. I had a few questions. The video would have been a few weeks ago. So when I found all the problems with the truck, that video is about 3 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I'm filming this the day after that video released, actually. So just to give you a little behind the scenes. And there were a few questions about bracing and keeping the cab square. I'll address it in this video since I just got the questions. This cab was super out of square to start. The rockers were disconnected from the front half of the cab on both sides. And I could see that the edges of the rockers were kind of mushroomed out. So it was actually wider at the bottom, the truck was, than it should have been. So it's already out of square to start with. So that's why I wasn't super nervous about overly bracing this thing up, because I knew as I put it back together, we're gonna have to square it up as we went along. It's already out of square. So the door braces help keep the door jamb from collapsing in on itself. That's why I threw that one in there, because I knew there was gonna be nothing connecting the front half of the truck to the back half of the truck once that rocker structure was cut out. As far as keeping this thing in place height-wise, I cut it in such a way that I left the internal structure here intact, and I made sure, so you see I've got this cutoff wheel, I'm using that as a shim. There was about 1/8 to 1/16 of an inch gap between this internal panel and the floor of the truck. So I maintained that with some shims around the truck. And then this morning what I've done is I've spent a good amount of time measuring and making sure that the cab is really square. So as I'm putting this structure back together here, this is mainly gonna affect the squareness of the floor. So what I was doing is taking diagonal measurements across the truck and making sure that those diagonal measurements match. And I'll go through that here in a second. So there's 3 planes you have to worry about. If you think about it, it's the floor plane, the back wall plane, and then the external side plane. The things that we're most concerned about at this point is really the floor plane getting out of whack. We do need to measure and make sure everything is kind of where it needs to be. Now I do have, you see this strap in here, this thing is out of whack with like the back wall plane. So it was over 1/2 inch out of square. And for reference, I mean, nothing, I don't think anything that we've cut out of this truck would affect that measurement at this point. So that's kind of wild. That's like from the factory or from the truck just over time settling, getting jostled around on the road. I've now got it within probably 1/8 to maybe 3/16, somewhere between 1/8 to 3/16 of an inch. So I got probably about 1/4 inch better square out of it now. So I'm gonna leave that strap in place until we get the back wall all welded in. So that's gonna stay right where it's at for now. The order of operations here, I think I'm gonna repair these rockers, then I'm gonna repair that back wall, because as this truck sits right now, nothing is attaching this back wall and these quarter panels to the floor. The whole back of that cab is loose. So I have to get all of this structure put back in place, because this panel here is what typically holds this back of this cab in place, as well as the corner panel structure that gets then welded in here. And I don't have any of those door corner jambs welded in yet. So I really want to get the back patched up, get that all fixed up, get it welded in place to make me feel a little bit better about keeping this truck a little more square when I take that strap out. Where I'm at now, I actually have this pretty dialed. My diagonal measurements across the floor here are within a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch. I'm okay with that. That's pretty darn close. My measurements across the doors are identical on both sides. So I'm feeling good about that exterior plane. It's really just the back wall that's out of square. So I have the truck pretty well squared up at this point in time. So what that means is I think I'm good to continue on and progress with fixing the rockers on this side and getting everything kind of welded back in place. Now, the one thing I did do on this side, I did keep a section of the floor here. And yes, it's got some movement, but it does give me a general idea of where this internal rocker is going to have to go back to. That in conjunction with this brace and a little bit more of the structure I was able to keep up front, all should help me locate things a little bit better than on the other side where I had nothing. And that's why I was super thrilled when I put that door on in last week's video and it shut, because we just kind of nailed that right on the money, right where it needed to be. But that's because I took a bunch of measurements off the passenger side before I put that back together. So first thing I want to do here, I'm going to show you guys how I squared the cab up. So I'm going to grab my tape measure here. So all I'm doing is I'm trying to get diagonal measurements from basically across the floor, across to this side of the truck. So we're trying to pick some common points to measure to. So since I'm here by myself, I tried to pick places that would be pretty easy for me to measure alone. So I'm putting that right into the corner of the cab back there. And then I'm setting the tape on top of the hinge on this side, and I'm measuring to my drip rail here. The lip of my drip rail. Let me make sure I get this position just right. The lip of my drip rail is about 78 3/16 there. So we're gonna bring this around to the other side, and we're gonna make that exact same measurement on this side. So you guys watch that corner for me. Once we get in the corner, I'll bring you over here. So same measurement on this side, and we're at about 78 1/4 to our drip edge. So that means we're within 78 3/16 to 78 1/4, within a 1/16 of an inch. I'm happy with that. I can live with that. That's pretty darn close, especially for an old truck. I doubt from the factory it was within a 1/16 of an inch. That means I've kind of located the back corner where it needs to be in relation to the front half of the truck, which means we can start welding the rockers back in. So before I do that, I need to do a bunch of patching in here. So the first thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna cut this rod out of this brace here, as well as the rod back here, and we're gonna weld in some patches here and get this all fixed up. Once I've got that done, then we're gonna move over to this rocker. I did not get this pulled apart last night. So this still has a little piece of the door jamb corner in there. And then I really need to separate the inner and outer rockers, because I'm gonna need to keep this rocker just as we did on the other side and repair it so that I can put this rocker back in. So a lot of work ahead for this video. Stay tuned. Let's get to work fixing up these braces in the floor. got everything repaired. I'm ready for the install of the inner rocker. Say hi to the branch manager tonight. As you saw, I went ahead, I got everything stripped off of the outer rocker. And it's basically the exact same repair we had to do on the driver's side. I just think it's funny that the only piece you can buy for these is this center cover, and that's the only thing that wasn't rotted out on mine. It's just kind of funny how that works. So I've got this marked out where it's going to be cut over and across. Same thing over here. We're going to cut down, over, down. And then I've got the exact same stencils I had for the other side. I lined them up. I refined this one a little bit, but all the rest of them were exactly the same. So I've already got those laid out on my panel here to cut. So we'll get those cut out, and then I'll get this cut apart. And the next step will be getting rid of all this crusty stuff and welding in the new pieces. Once those are all welded up, I can actually start fitting everything back together over here, and hopefully by the end of tonight we'll have the inner rocker, the outer rocker, and this front cab door jamb corner installed just like we do on the other side. That'll finish off this video when I'm done with that. And like I said before, the next thing I think we're going to do is tackle this repair back here. What do you think, Joe? Sounds like a plan? Yeah? Okay. Outer rocker repaired. This turned out really nice. Again, same kind of deal as the last one. I'm not going crazy trying to clean up all the welding on the inside. It just is what it is. It's not worth my time to clean all that up, but there you go, guys. Got this rocker done. We're ready to start installing these rockers, but the first thing I need to do over here is I actually need to weld in the corner of this door jamb. I pre-measured everything. I got this edge all cleaned up where it needs to be, so we're pretty much ready to tack this in. I'm gonna go ahead, get this tacked in, and then we'll start getting the outer rocker, or the inner rocker fit up. One thing I realized I missed here, there's a hole here, so I'm gonna cut this off, weld a new tab on for our mid brace here. I'm gonna do that as well after I get the door jamb welded up. All right, now it's time to dry fit everything and see how all of our panels are gonna line up. So I've only got a couple tacks in this panel just so it'll stay in place while I manipulate everything else. So I'm just gonna get this slid into place where it belongs, and we're just gonna clamp everything to start. Okay, I'm actually not far off there. All right, I went ahead, I drilled out all of my spot welds in the rocker panels and over here in these panels. So we're basically ready for assembly. So I'm gonna get you guys set up on the tripod. We're gonna start getting all of the pieces put back onto the truck. Hopefully by the end of the night, we will have the skeleton of the truck back together. All right, now we can start reassembling here. So this piece is gonna go in first. Get our air rocker up into place. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna throw a couple tacks in the very back of this thing first. One good one there to get us started. I don't want to weld too much into place until we get things kind of lined up here. Start fitting this into place. Okay, I did take a couple measurements off the original rocker panels. So one of those is from the drip edge, the drip rail and the roof down. We were, oh, that's not quite right, 51 9/16. And yeah, I'm within a 1/16 of an inch there. That's perfect. That's spot on. That's exactly 41 inches. That's what it was previously. This all looks really good by my eyeball. All right, I think I'm gonna start tacking this thing in place. 3 days of thrashing, and we made some huge progress here. This is a big step in the right direction. Let's take a look at the finished product on the passenger side of the truck here. So we've got all this structure welded back in. It looks so much better. You can see how tight the gap is between the inner and outer rocker. We had over an inch before. And as you saw in the last video, we got this side done as well. So what this means, this is a huge step, guys. This is a big deal. I don't want to, you know, as upset, I don't want to say upset, but as disappointed as I was when I was reviewing the cab and seeing how much rust as there was in it, you really need to celebrate your victories. Tonight's a victory. We've got a good base to build off of now. Now I can go in, patch floors, get all that stuff going. This is a huge step, huge step. We have a long ways to go. There's still a lot of rust in this cab, but just having the structural integrity back in this truck makes me feel so much better. And it looks great. It honestly looks fantastic. I'm super thrilled with it. But that's gonna have to do it for tonight. We got a lot of work done in the last 3 days. I'm tired. I need a little bit of break. I've got a lot of video to edit for you guys. Of course, by the time you're seeing this, that's already been done. But I'm whipped. I'm ready to call it a night. And you guys know what that means. It means if you do not work on your projects, they will not work on themselves. Get out in the garage, get building, and I'll see you on the next episode of Cody Builds.